What's up, guys? Xbox Tech Junkie back today with another video. Today we're going to be talking about Halo Epitaph. Wait a minute, you're not the first in this series. Now, I know you're probably wondering, but James, like you just said, this is not the first in the entire Halo books. True. But today, we're going to be talking about it because this book actually hits shelves this week, and I was able to get my hands on an early copy about a week ago, and I have finished it already. So today we're going to be doing a spoiler-free review of the book. Now, the reason why it's going to be spoiler-free is for two reasons. One, the book is not out yet, and I don't feel like posting spoilers, and, accidentally risking someone who's really excited to read it, find this video, and then suddenly they know the whole book and are depressed. Second reason is because, like I said, for all my videos, I'm going to do a really long review, talk about basically every aspect of the book as much as I can, what it means for the larger universe, all that fun stuff. And I feel like if I do this one so early, then it kind of ruins it for the rest of the series. So it will be a long time before we get to this book because it takes place relatively close to Halo Infinite. And we'll talk about more about that in just a minute. So the way this is going to work is I'm going to give a brief summary of the book, talk about my thoughts and my feelings about it, and then talk about kind of like, well, what do you need to know in order to get to this book? Where does it take place? What other book should I read? Is there games that I should play to understand what's going on? All the fun jazz. And then I will leave off with my own little review. I'm still trying to work out the review system, so this is kind of a tester series. But anyways, let's just jump into it and talk about this book. So, Halo Epitaph. I was super excited when this book was first revealed because one, it's made by the Miss Kelly Gay. Absolutely love her Halo stories, and I cannot wait to get into more of them later down the road. And two, it's about the Didact, or known as Shadow of Thunder Star, or better just known as the Didact from Halo 4. Now, the reason why I say it like that is because, well, I don't want to get too much spoilers, but we'll talk about why I say it like that in the next couple books. What made me really excited for this book was just the first sight of the cover. Now, as you can probably tell, or maybe you can't, but the Didact is in a very weird looking form. He's wearing a cloak, his armor's half destroyed, and his face just looks beat. This book pretty much follows the Didact directly after the events of Halo Escalation. He's fractured both mentally, physically, his memory's fractured. He's just trying to figure out what is going on, what happened to him. And it's this giant story of basically the last story of the Didact. I mean, just from the name of it, Epitaph, you can kind of already tell that this is going to be the last story about the Didact. And I won't give too much spoilers as to how it is, but trust me, if you're a big fan of the Didact and you kind of hope he gets either a happy ending, a good ending, or whatever it is, you'll probably be pleasantly surprised with how this book is. It's not how you might think, but it's really good. And overall, the book kind of takes place almost a little bit separately from the games, except for some very key areas. And I won't get into too much about that because, again, that would just spoil stuff. But let me just tell you, there are certain scenes from certain Halo games that I will never look at the same because of this book. And there were certain things that I really wanted to happen, but at the same time didn't. And I guess at the end of the day, I was still pretty happy, but also slightly disappointed. I know that's really confusing to say, but trust me, once you read this book, you'll probably understand a little bit more. If you've read the book, feel free to comment, ask me what I was talking about, or find me on Twitter. We can talk about it there as well, so we don't spoil it on the comment section below. But overall, this is a really good book. I will say I was a little bit hard getting through the first couple chapters because it's more about the Didact by himself. So a lot of it is about him traveling through this desert, trying to figure out who he is, running across all these different memories that he can't really piece together. So a lot of it is a retelling of stuff that we kind of knew, some new stuff, and at the same time, just a lot of, solo characters. So there's not much dialogue, there's not much going on. So slow start, but after those first couple chapters and he starts getting into other characters that are in the book, it takes off, and it's such an amazing story. So I loved it. I highly recommend it. Now, as you probably know, I said that there is quite a bit to get prepared for this book. One thing I'm going to basically do with all my book reviews is talk about is there certain books I need to read or games I need to play before I read this book to fully understand it? That's just a way to help people who are really wanting to dive into the universe and make sure that they're connecting dots and fully understanding it. Full disclosure at the start, there's a lot of these books I have not read in so long, so I won't immediately remember, but I'll make sure that if something pops up in another book or a game and I'm like, oh, I forgot to say that, I'll make sure I mention it in the video after or whatever I come across it. But for now, yes. If you want to fully understand this book, there's quite a bit of preparation. You can read it by itself, however, there's going to be a lot of things you're going to be a little bit confused about. And I have a couple of good primers for you to get started. So first and foremost, what you're really going to want is the entire Forerunner saga by Greg Bear. And these are the first 3 books we will be discussing when I finally get to the reviews. Cryptum's done, then you're going to want to read Primordium, which I'm currently on, and then Silentium is the last of the saga. These books are pretty much pivotal to understand what's going on in Epitaph. Mostly because a lot of it is talking about characters and events that took place during these 3 books. So if you try to just jump into Epitaph without reading these 3, trust me, you're going to be very lost. Even if you played Halo 4 and you fully understand Halo 4's story, you're not going to understand this book without these 3. After those 3, though, you're then going to want to play Halo 4. And that's because, obviously, Halo 4 is our first real game. The game's not in here, sorry. The first game with the Didact actually being seen. It talks about his awakening from his cryptum, up into, spoiler alert for Halo 4, but it's been 12 years, guys, come on. Talked about the point when Chief plants a pulse grenade in the Didact's chest, and then he falls into what some might believe is his death, but in reality, he basically falls into, I guess, slip space, and he gets transported to Gamma Halo. And that's how Halo 4 pretty much ends. It doesn't show him going to Gamma Halo, but we'll get to that point. So you'll want to play Halo 4 to fully understand what happens when he awakens from his cryptum after the firing of the Halo Ray during Halo Silentium. Spoiler alert, but kind of had to know that. So the next thing you're going to want to read, and I know it looks big, but you don't actually have to read this whole thing, is 3 volumes of Halo Escalation, or I should say issues. And those are issues 8 through 10, also known as the next 72 hours. Now, I won't do a full, in-depth look into this today. Obviously, I want to save each one for when we get to that point in the series. But there is some important parts about the Didact in this giant comic book. Now, I do actually recommend the library edition of this book because when you go into the actual sections, it has little notes from 343 and the different authors that just kind of give you a little bit more context as to what's going on. And this is important because essentially what happens in this comic is it's kind of like shows how Master Chief and Blue Team reunited prior to Halo 5. It takes place almost instantaneously after Halo 4, shows how Master Chief met up with Blue Team, and then it kind of gives us a little bit more of a extended story into the Master Chief and the Didact's confrontation. Now, basically in this, Chief comes to find out that the Didact survived, and when he fell into the portal, he was thrown into Installation 03, where he basically finds the Composer's Forge, or at least a portal to the Composer's Forge. Now, remember, the Composer is essentially a device that allows the Didact to turn living things into data and implement them into the Promethean Knights. And so the Composer's Forge is essentially like the Ark of Composers. It's where all the Composers are essentially built. Now, this is important to note because the only way Chief can figure out how to exactly take out the Didact is, to do one of the biggest things ever, and that is compose the Didact. Now, if you're obviously played Halo 4 and you're thinking about it like, no, the Didact can't be composed because that was essentially the gift the librarian gave to Master Chief. The Master Chief cannot be composed, and that also means that the Didact can't be composed. True. However, what ends up happening is when Master Chief is on Gamma Halo, he uses the ring to eject that piece that holds the Didact into the Composer's Forge. And now what's really important to note from this is Brian Reed, the original creative writer for the Halo 4 and 5 games. Actually, I don't know if it was Halo 4, but Halo 5 definitely. He essentially says that this is 6+ composers detonating all at once. So it's thinking about 6 composers essentially going off at one time, and that's enough energy to basically bypass the gift or the invulnerability against the composer and composes the didact. But as Brian Reed says, that this is not a traditional version of being composed, and that the didact will be seen again. Now, if he meant also, if you want to see, sticking out, that is the didact being composed. I'll actually show a better picture right here so you can get a more clear one than me just trying to show it to you. If you know a lot about Halo 5's story, is it wasn't well received, and Brian Reed was actually let go soon after the release of Halo 5. So who knows exactly what he meant by we will see the didact again later on. Maybe he was going to be an antagonist or a protagonist, who knows, in Halo 6, whatever the original version of that was. But that's just speculation. For now, we know what really happened is, and he did return, he was composed, but again, not composed in the traditional sense. He is now basically a living essence within this wasteland, trying to figure out where he is. And so that's pretty much what you need to basically understand this book. I know it is quite a lot. I mean, I really just threw 3 books, 1 comic book, and a video game at you. There are some external sources that I would say would be kind of good to play in order to not really fully understand, but to connect dots with this, and that would be Halo 5 and Halo Infinite. I can't get into too much detail without fully spoiling it, so basically what I would say is the Forerunner Saga, pivotal. Halo 4, pivotal. Escalation's not as pivotal, but you might be a little more confused without it, just because it does give that bridge between Halo 4 and Halo Epitaph. 5 and Infinite aren't necessarily completely necessary, but you know, they're nice to have as little, like, wow, that's cool, little nuggets to grab at while you're reading the book. Well, that's pretty much it for today's video, guys. I really hope you enjoyed it. I really enjoyed reading Epitaph. It was amazing. Kelly Gay, as I mentioned, is just so amazing at her stories. I think one of the greatest challenges for her is to basically pick up the mantle of responsibility that was Greg Bear, the original author who made all 3 of the Forerunner Saga books. His novels and stories were just so amazing that I think it was probably hard for a lot of people to really accept someone else taking up that mantle. But Kelly Gay does it so effortlessly. She's just an amazing writer, and this book is just everything you could ask for in the Forerunner. I mean, honestly, it's basically part of the Forerunner Saga. So realistically, if you want to think about it, there are now 4 books in it. And this is probably one of the greatest 4 books that I've ever read in the Halo series. So highly recommend Epitaph. Again, if you really want to discuss more about it in detail with me, please feel free to follow me on Twitter. I will leave my tag somewhere on the screen. Could be here, there, everywhere. I don't know. You'll know once you see it. But definitely give me a follow. Definitely feel free to reach out. I'll try to connect with you and just talk about anything and everything Epitaph and anything and everything Halo. But thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you on the next one.